Welcome to A Lunch with Biggie, a podcast about small business and creatives sharing their stories and inspiring you. My guest today is a creative that loves sewing and creating and selling online and at local craft shops. Please welcome the mind behind the owner of UpOwlNight Carolina Fuguet. Forget about it.
Forget about it.
Forget about it. So Carolina, thank you so much for coming on. I absolutely love your energy, and I've always loved your energy since we've met many years back. And I kind of wanted to have you on because I think you kind of encompass the idea of kind of like the hustle, doing it out of love, the passion, and all those things. So I kind of wanted to chat with that. Figure we could kind of talk shop. And usually my first question during my lunch break is, what's your usual go-to lunch or sandwich?
Oh, great question. So if I had to pick a sandwich, I prepped for this question. My ultimate sandwich is my mom's grilled cheese.
Oh, okay.
I've been having that grilled cheese since I was like a toddler. She makes it with like a tomato soup, and it's just like it's home. So
So
that is
I need to know, because obviously that's like the most popular sandwich to be made at home, but I need to know some specifics. So I need to know, like, what kind of bread are we talking about? What kind of cheese are we talking about? Like, that's the kind of thing I'm kind of curious about. Does she use butter? Does she use mayo? What does she use it when she makes it? Like, what do you know? What are the details that you know about it?
So super simple, and it's like no magic, but it's literal magic to me. It's just literally white bread, some butter on a flat grill, and she'll do the bread, put the cheese, put the other slice, flip it over, and that's it. Like that's
And it's
literally
just, is it straight
and it's
American
Kraft
cheese?
singles. Kraft
Yeah.
singles.
Hey, I'm gonna be honest with you. I used to be very hoity-toity and be like, I don't need no Kraft singles.
Right?
And probably for the last like 4 years, I've been like, yeah, Kraft singles, you're my friend. I'm
Oh,
okay. I'm
100%.
okay eating you. I'm okay eating you.
100%.
Yeah. I'm okay
And
eating the nice cheese with it. But yeah, no, it makes a great grilled cheese.
oh, it does. And it's so gooey, and with like the tomato soup, it's just it's home.
I love it.
But yeah, that has to be like the sandwich. If I had to think of a sandwich, for sure.
Okay. Okay. So tell people about, give people an idea of how Up All Night came about, and what they can expect if they were to go online and check you out. Like, kind of give people a little bit of an idea of that, and then we'll kind of talk about how and why you started it.
Okay. Well, UpOwlNight is an all-encompassing, crafty, very creative business. I mean, my main hustle is graphic design. So this married the crafty with the graphic, and it kind of brought it all together. But I mean, UpOwlNight has been around for, I want to say, 20 years now.
Wow.
And me, myself, and I have done literally all of it. I mean, from scrapbooking to, paper crafts, card making. I've done the whole gamut. The only thing that we haven't done, my mom and I just talked about this, we haven't done soap making or candle making. Those are the only two things we haven't dabbled in. But resin, needlework, all those things kind of have always been around. So I've always been super crafty. So to make it a business, it was kind of like, okay, now I got to hone in on what really is what people want. But I started out by making something for myself, and and then someone would ask me for something, and I would make it, and I'm like, oh, I can make this again. And then I would make something else. I'm like, oh, I can make this again. And I would just find a pattern, and then I'd be like, okay, I can modify this, make it better, and just started going from there. I would see something and I go, oh, I can make that. And then I'd go home and I make it.
I think that's awesome, though, the fact that, because I knew that was one of the big things for you, like the name. I absolutely love, and you can definitely share like how the name Up Owl Night came out, because it's Up Owl, OWL
Yeah.
Night,
Yes.
kind of like a night owl,
Yes.
because that's obviously when you would try to find time to be able to kind of be able to do that, be able to work it, because you had, you were working a job and also kind of doing this on the side. Is this
Exactly.
currently now your full-time hustle, or are you still doing graphic? So you do graphic design for Up All Night, but pretty much this is your full-time
Right.
thing now.
So technically it is a subsidiary of my main corporate business. So this is now full-time hustle, full-time hustle. So they both go together. It just depends on who I'm talking to. But
Yeah.
Crafty Biz, full-time, graphics, full-time. But yeah, I did. That's exactly where the name came from. I worked a full-time job. I was an interior designer for like most of my after high school years, and that's what I thought I wanted to be. And I was like, design, and it was, exciting, and then it just didn't pan out. And then I went into the digital design, and crafty business was always there, but only on the weekends and at
Yeah.
night. So Up All Night was why I called it
Yeah.
that. But I loved owls, and the colors has always been the same. The types of crafts have always been the same. But yeah, now it's full-time hustle, and it's been great to see it kind of evolve from that.
I think it's awesome. So when I first met you,
Yeah.
I it was a few years back, and I met you at Atomic Holiday Bazaar. And it's what I love is the fact that you've kind of like your brand has evolved, is a constant evolution, kind of like how you said you've done so many different things. Because I remember the number one thing I remember was you had these cool wired headbands, was and I loved your whole setup and everything that you had. And then like a few years later, when I got to see you again after COVID and everything, you had that, but then you also had like stickers, and you had these awesome cushions that I bought because it was a peanut butter and jelly bread cushions, and all these different things. So tell me a little bit about how that evolution, like kind of like how you went, where you started as a brand and selling, and then kind of where how you've kind of evolved and why you evolved to those different areas.
So when I started doing Up All Night at craft shows and things like that, especially Atomic was one of my first big shows. Because I worked in the interior design industry, I had a lot of resources that were given to me, fabrics and wallpapers and things like that. Leather was a big one. And I never liked wasting it. I always was told to throw it away. It was
Yeah.
samples, and I hated that. So I was like, let me recycle it and like make something out of it. And I did. And my very first Atomic show, I had headbands, and it was like leather, like feathery things. It was really cute. And then I got into fabric making and using the fabric to make purses and pouches. And um, I went from using Velcro to zippers, and it just little by little I would start making different things and upgrading them and using better things, better hardware or whatever. And eventually those things kind of fade out. The fad, turns are over, and I had to make something new. And the consistent item now, especially the last few years before and after COVID, have been the wired head wraps. So they're just bandana head wraps with wire in them, and they've been great sellers. And then during COVID, because people aren't seeing each other in person, it was kind of hard to sell those online. So I had to revert to something else that would, make it through
Yeah.
that time frame. And one of the things that I always wanted to do was make pins, but pins are expensive and they cost a lot. And there are resources, but it requires a lot of investment, and I just didn't have that. So I took on the whole sticker making thing, and I'm like, I can do this. I got a Cricut machine. I have, a good printer. And I just little by little started making a bunch of stuff, and it got better and it got easier. And then I was like, well, we need cool packaging. So I made my cool packaging. So the graphic comes in, I can make my packages all light, nice and cute, and stickers became a thing. And then the most recent thing from my library of things is the sticker books. The sticker books are
Yeah.
the latest creation. And I figured I love things that are functional. I cannot do things that just sit on the shelf and like collect dust. I love things that people can use and enjoy, even if it's just a little bit. It's always been my philosophy. So to have these books kind of, bring back the nostalgia, which is I'm a huge fan of, just the cute and quirky, like it all falls into that brand. So it just made sense to put that together with the brand. So now it's, more graphic influence. I design things that I love, and I make a lot of them to sell.
Yeah.
you know?
No, and I think that's totally accurate. Like I think I love when I look at your social media. Like I was my wife was looking at it, and I was like showing her, and she was like, my gosh, look at that wall full of all her stickers
Yes.
that she has. And she's like, that's a great display. You should do that. And I was like, I have so many stickers. I don't know how I would be able to do that. Because you also have it set up in a way where your stickers, which is really smart, your stickers are already like set up in like the plastic with like the
Yeah.
everything. So it's almost like shop ready. Like if someone were to come into your house and they can like literally grab it almost like off the shelf type of
Yep.
thing, is kind of how you have it, which I think is great. And then I am kind of curious about how the sticker book came about, because so basically the sticker book is the bet, and tell me if I guess I'll have you describe it, but I will say that what I love about it is you made it look like a composite book, like a composition book,
Yes.
which, by the way, is what I use for all my my note taking
Yes.
for when I do my podcasts.
Right.
I just use composition books for my research and composition books for kind of like show notes.
Love it.
Um, but it's one of those where it's almost kind of like old school. I want to say old school photo album. Is that
Yeah.
kind of what it is? Because
It,
you can take them off and put them on, and like, but
yeah.
it still stays there. Is that kind of what the idea of it is, where
So
you got the
it
idea from?
yeah, it's literally the pages are made of that release paper that usually the stickers come on. It just happens to be the size of a piece of paper, so you can literally place them wherever, take them off, and it doesn't lose its stickiness. And it's literally genius. I mean, I can't take credit for making the book. I just can only take credit for the art that I put on it. But it started because I have a lot of stickers besides the ones that I already make for myself. I
Yeah,
mean, I don't know how many tumblers. Also, my Cricut machines, my sewing machines. I have two of each. Tumblers and numerous tumblers full of stickers from yours to mine to
yeah.
people that collected. And I'm like, ever since I was a little kid, that Lisa Frank little child in me has collected stickers since I was little. And I'm like, I put them on anything, but also I don't like putting them on anything because then I'm like committed and they're gone forever. And then they get dirty and you're sad. So I was looking into this. It just sort of being a trend, and I looked at it on other accounts, and there was this one artist that had the bigger version, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. And I looked into it, was gonna buy it, just couldn't get sold on the art. I was like, the art was just not calling my name. So I was like, what if? And our mutual friend Monique had told me, she's like, go for it, like what do you got to lose? And I'm like, I don't know, like a lot of investment. But I built up to it. I made the art, and the art resonates with me because I grew up in a country and in an era where that's all we had was
Yeah.
composition notebooks. And to set ourselves different apart and different from everybody else, either you get a colored one, which back then there wasn't that many colors. It was
Yep.
like black and maybe yellow. And I would color them in with my Sharpies. All the white spots in the books, I would
Oh
color them
yeah.
with my Sharpies. So that was my composition notebook, even though my name was written across it. But that always just kind of like it felt good because that was what I grew up having. So it just made sense to me. So I put a couple colors together, and they're hits. I sell out of them. I just restocked recently because I'm like, I can't keep them in stock.
No, and I love that because then they could buy some of your stickers and buy a sticker book that goes with it. So
Yeah.
it's like the perfect combination when it comes to
Yeah.
that. Um, so you do a lot of different markets,
Yes.
as well as obviously sell online. And I kind of wanted to get a little bit of an idea of like where do you go about like how like obviously there's some markets as we as small business owners, there's some markets that we always have like as constant, like, hey, I always do these. And then there's also somewhere like you sometimes have to kind of either go to different markets or you want to try out different ones. So I always like to pick other small businesses brains of like when you start looking at other markets, what are some of the things like the telltale signs that you're looking for, or you're kind of kind of seeing like, hey, is this something I want to go to or something I want to try? Sometimes maybe you do a market that you've never been to and you're just like, I'm just going to try it. I kind of want to get a little bit of an idea of like your thought process of like what you're looking for and what you recommend people should be looking for when they go to apply to a different market.
That's a great question. I mean, throughout the years, it's hard. It's hard to say, oh, this one works better than that. But I mean, telltale sign is that they've been back after a couple years. If they do it annually or regularly, South Florida is a very oversaturated market as it is, so there's always a show going on. I mean, even coming October, there's 400 of them every weekend. But over the years, I've just found that if I can make it to the show myself as a visitor and kind of explore it and see it, that's usually the way to go. Not always because I don't really do outdoor shows because it's too hot. But if the show, if I have a friend in it or another vendor friend is in it, I'll go and like pick their brain about it too. And it's usually kind of word of mouth. Um, and if I've done the show before and I'm excited about it again, sometimes the season is makes a difference. Like sometimes the January show does better than the October show, which is so bizarre, but it
Yeah.
happens. So I try to keep up on like what's consistent and what's always evolving. If the people that are doing the show are out there and they're marketing themselves good and getting their name out there, like if I see their profiles are getting a lot of reach, like those are the things that matter to me because that's what ultimately brings people in to see me. The rest I can do, just bring me the people. So, and then, just the fact that there are shows that are out of state and maybe out of my city that I can explore too, also have been one of my newest things. I'm on this Comic Con kick, actually. So I've been doing Comic Cons and big Comic Cons. So 2-3 day shows that are, constant people. And it's just something that I can sit there and kind of hone in on my, my pitch and kind of, work it out. Those are the shows that I love because the people are what make me,
Yeah.
get into it. So I did MegaCon in Orlando earlier this year. I did SuperCon. I've done SuperCon before. It's been great. And thinking big shows. So having a couple big shows throughout the year, and then having like Atomic Holiday Bazaar at the end of the year, which is like my 17th year doing it now.
Wow.
So I
You've been doing
know
it since the beginning?
I was like 2 or 3 years in after she started it. Someone told me about it and I was like, Sarasota's not that far. And then I fell in love with Adrian and I was just like, done. I'm sold.
Yeah.
So I beg her every year, can you just take me back, please? Like, I would love to do this show. So I will always come back if she has me because it's a consistent show. Even if it's a week early or 2 weeks early, like it's gonna be great. This year's
Yeah.
gonna be great too. So, but yeah, there's a lot involved, but it just depends. Like if there's some markets that are strictly just like artisan, and I'm like, maybe my quirky stuff might not fit, but I went to a show recently. It was literally a brewery. I paid nothing. Sat there in the heat and the hot. I was sweating profusely, and I made more money than I ever did at a regular show.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
can't.
Sometimes you just never know what is going to be. What kind of stickers would you say are like, what's like your most popular items right now besides the sticker book? Like what stickers and stuff like that? Cause you also do some shirts.
Yes.
I've seen you do you do some custom shirts as well. So like you kind of provide some kind of templates so like people can kind of create their own, which I think is great. But
Yeah.
what are some of the stickers that you say you would think are right now kind of your big sellers right now?
Consistently, doesn't matter what time of the year, it's always going to be my ghosties and my spooky stuff, Halloween. Typically I have some like Harry Potter inspired ones too. I have the retro McDonald's buckets from last year that I was obsessed about as a kid and as an adult. So I made those because I was just like, this is life. And those are pretty consistent too. I'm looking at my sticker board. Yeah, I mean, I do some Disney inspired ones too. I have some funny sayings, but mostly I would say the ghosts are always the hot ticket.
Everyone loves the ghosts.
These little ghosties are so cute. I have one that holds a plant. I mean,
I know. My wife saw that and she's like, I need to get that for our friend. I was like, yeah, everyone knows someone who has a plant friend. So I was like, yeah,
exactly.
no, I think it's great. Where do you get most of your inspiration from? Obviously, from what it sounds like, a lot of it are things that you probably like and enjoy. But where else do you get your inspiration from?
I mean, it really starts there. I mean, I scour, tons of sites like Pinterest and Instagram. And, my thing is always kind of keeping it within some categories. Like I consider like vintage retro, I like theme parks and maybe some fandoms. And those are things that I like. So I'm assuming there's other people in the world that like those things too.
Yeah.
So I just kind of always make what I like first and then go from there. But yeah, I see it everywhere. I mean, if somebody's like, oh, this is taking off, I'm like, I could add to that. Because in my brain, I'm like, well, if I buy their sticker and I put my sticker next to it, they'll work together,
I like
That's
that.
kind of like
That.
sometimes how I think.
No, I like that. No,
Yeah.
and I think that's super important. I think that's one of the big things I think that I appreciate and from you and so many different other brands that I talk to is the fact that they're doing things that they actually like and enjoy. They're not doing it because they're chasing the dollar. Like they may have like, oh, this could work on my, you can kind of follow on, still stick on the trends
Right.
on some of those things, but at the same time, stay within your lane and your niche. And I think that's like one of the good things about being able to do those things. Those are the ones I appreciate because obviously you then stand out even more because you're kind of like, oh, I'm doing that blend. So
Right.
so no, I totally agree with you when it
Yeah.
comes to that for sure.
Yeah, I have to. I stay true to that. I've always struggled with that because you never know, like you don't know. Like obviously, like back then, the leather head wraps and these fabrics that I can't get anymore, like hit somebody then and it worked for them. But like for me now, I would never use those fabrics. They're
Yeah.
too much. They're not the vibe. I would never go back to that, but I'm also like appreciative that I've grown from that, but didn't stick to those trends. Like I'm
Yeah.
not like uber trendy like that, which it's different for like I even look at people like I follow tons of great people on like Instagram and TikTok and that are out west in California and their styles are way different than what we sell over here. So it's kind of
Correct.
like I'm okay with that. Like I'm okay with being completely different. So it's nice not to be like on the nose with a lot of stuff.
So and you're right. I mean, and you're definitely going to see a different vibe based on West Coast, East Coast,
Yeah.
and how all that kind of works. I kind of wanted to ask you because it's like you mentioned like the TikTok and social,
Yeah.
and one of the things that you and I have been kind of talking about lately is, like you've been really hitting it hard on TikTok. Like you got like over like 10,000 followers, and I kind of like it's weird because to me like I'll do Instagram reels, but I never think like, oh, I should make that a TikTok. I don't know why my brain just does not go that route. So I kind of want you to help me like figure out, or at least to kind of spread the gospel, I guess, on like how do you advertise and like how you've kind of created that following, and then maybe how like you can like maybe kind of give me some of the reasons and rationales where you've kind of said, hey, this is where I'm seeing that success and
Yeah.
this is why you should do it. Because I think other people sometimes get a little scared on it. They think, and I know how it is. Everyone thinks like a TikTok is the dancey video, and it's not.
Not
People
anymore.
actually, it's everything. Like I love looking at it. I could spend hours looking at it because it's great, but I think it can become intimidating. So I
It is.
figure I'd ask you like what are some things that have been working for you, and then what are some tips and advice that you have for that?
Well, I'll tell you, I was the same way. I was super intimidated by TikTok dancing and dubbing reels and putting my face on camera. I was like, there is no way you couldn't pay me enough money. You couldn't buy enough of my stuff. There was no way. And to be honest, I don't think I would have done it unless TikTok reached out to me. There was a pivotal point in like, I want to say it was like January, February, they reached out to me and they were like, we love what you're doing. Sure. We want you to participate in the ad program. And I was like, do I want to? That sounds crazy. Like, that sounds like a lot of money. So I spoke to someone. They were very assuring, very knowledgeable. They were like, oh, yeah, this video that you did over here, it garnished so much, attention. Those are the kind of videos we want. We want that organic, not edited, not stylized. We want you just pressing your shirts and sewing your things and just hey, this is me kind of thing. And I was like, what? That's crazy. Instagram is not like that. But it took me a while to separate the Instagram portfolio to the TikTok portfolio because it's completely different audiences. So I went through the program of like I did an ad. They showed me how to do an ad. I did one for the books. I garnished like a community and of likes, and some of them are likes that come in and they go, yeah, we like it, and that's great. But I turned those off after a while because I was like, I don't want to spend the money and do this and not sell anything. So I went back to the drawing board and said, okay, what am I doing? I'm going to be, I'm going to carefully craft these videos for TikTok, but I don't have the time to do two of them. So again, Monique gave me the best advice and she was like, recycle your content. And I'm like, duh, it's the same. Like,
Yeah,
so whatever video I put on Instagram, if I could find the sound on TikTok, I would just and post. And it would work for a good long while. And that's really how I just kept consistent because whatever I did on Instagram or on TikTok, I would reverse it and do the opposite. And then obviously these platforms change and they don't like that. So you have to kind of evolve with them. And that's the algorithm, screaming back at you. So I started developing just what works for Instagram works for Instagram. And now with the TikTok shops and like things that are, more easily accessible, TikTok is a different beast. I have to approach it differently. So I make videos and I find short sounds. I don't even find original sounds for TikTok. It's just a background sound, a song that I like, edit a little bit, boom, post. That's it. Where TikTok or with Instagram, it's more like I gotta, find a little template that
yeah,
works, like get a little
yeah.
more fancy. So I might use the same videos, but I have to edit for both platforms now because they do react differently. But it's been great because with TikTok shops now integrated, I don't have to do any ads. I literally just
And I was going to ask you about that. What is TikTok shops like? Is that something special that you have after you get a certain point? You have to
nope.
what? How does all that work?
So they just rolled it out actually officially now for the US. I guess I was in the beta program for a good while from like March to July was like my time frame. And they're very limited. So you post your products in there just like any other platform. You put your products, product list, and they have a set shipping rate. You have to put the weight in. It's very particular. It doesn't connect with any e-commerce, so it's very much on its own. But it gives you a little bit of a taste on how to like get into that algorithm of selling stuff. They also have like a commission program where if you enable it on your account, you can reach out to other creators and say, if you post a video about this sticker book, I will give you the sticker book for free so you can post a review. And then they post it on their profile, and anybody who shops from that link, they get a commission. I sell my book and everybody's happy. So that's something that kind of has grown that particular side of TikTok shops. There's a lot of downsides to it too, because it is very limiting. They limit to like 200 orders a day. I haven't seen any shops grow out of that just yet. I think they're still kind of, keeping it contained. Just some glitches and some stuff that come up that, you have to kind of reach out for them, and they're not really like accessible all the time. So
Yeah.
little stuff, but for the most part, I keep it simple. I have my sticker books on there. I try to do a sticker here and there just to see if it'll work, but because it requires shipping, I'm like, I don't want to have to ship something if I don't need to, add shipping, especially stickers. So, I'm
Yeah.
playing around with stuff, and I might just do exclusive items on the shop that will do better on a TikTok shop than they would in my actual website, or
Yeah.
maybe a craft show. So it's like there's a lot of playing around right now, but I have one ad running, and that's literally just for the new Halloween covers for the sticker books, and that's it. And there's a consistent amount of people that'll like, and they'll favorite the video, and they'll save it for later, or I can see when they share it. And it's like, that's what you're looking for. That's what you
Yeah.
want to get out of all of it. So it's just a matter of finding like that one product that hits, and just for TikTok, just focusing on that, I think. But it's right now, it's all the rage. And I would recommend to anybody, honestly, just go for it. Even if you become like a commission, like an what do they call those? An affiliate,
Yeah.
um so you can get the commission off of somebody else's stuff. Why not? I mean,
Yeah.
we got people playing NPCs on there and making money. Why can't we make money?
That
So
no, you're absolutely right. I think that's I love that idea. What what advice would you give yourself since you've been doing this for so long now? What are some things that you've kind of learned, advice or tips that you would give yourself if you were starting over again, and starting something new? What would advice would you kind of give yourself,
that's
based on what you've learned? Because I mean, you've
yeah,
evolved your brand to so many different things, which is one of the things that I love, because I think, being agile and being able to be adaptive and being able to see those things and still doing what you love is so important, when you're a brand or a
yeah.
business, because it can get, after, like, if you get stuck in your ways and you don't want to do anything or you don't want to change, then you're not going anywhere.
Right. And that's always a struggle. I mean, for me, it's always been trying to hone in the ideas, because I have so many and I want to execute them all. But no time for that. But I would say if I had to start over, I would probably stick to maybe one or two products, master that, and then grow, which is basically what I do now. It's already the same
Yeah.
advice. It's just start small. I like to do things in excess because that's just my personality as it is. I don't need to make 10, I need to make 100. That's literally been my MO for every show. No, it's a 2-hour show. Nope, got to make 200 of them. And my mom can attest to that. Because I have literally 500, 600 head wraps sitting in my closet right now, waiting for the next show. So yeah, it's an excess, but I would say small quantities, controllable quantities, make it work. If it works, get bigger quantities. Like, but that's just if you're starting small, start
Yeah.
small, grow into bigger quantities and larger volumes, and evolve the brand. Like with my brand, it's like now that I can literally create my own. I can create my own shirts. I can create my own sticker books. I can create my own stickers. Nothing's going to stop me from making more things. So it just
Correct.
matter if I can bring that element in and be involved in the process as much as I can. That's where I thrive. Outsourcing it doesn't work for me. I mean, I even have a problem with like sending my stickers to get printed. I'm like, oh, my babies, you know, I'm like, I gotta make them myself. And then I'm like, oh, but what if this happens or that happens? So it always is a struggle. But I mean, finding good resources is always fun, because, once you got one that does really well, you don't want to let them go. And if the price is right, you can't help that, but I mean, I can tell you, I have sticker names, shirt names, brand for vinyl, brand for transfer paper. I will never leave them because they've been good to me, and that's the core of the business, is to make
Yeah.
sure it works. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I totally get that. That's like so that is such an important aspect of being able to that and finding like and
Yeah.
you kind of hit those like starting
Yeah.
small, but at the same time finding those right vendors and finding those right products that are reliable and that you're kind of consistent because obviously that's kind of that goes hand in hand
Yeah.
with your brand as well.
Yep.
Um, you're also such a great advocate and supporter of small businesses. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of that community and supporting one another?
I could not, I could have a whole podcast about just that alone. Um, Listen, I started when I left the interior design business. I said to myself, I'm going to go out on my own. I'm going to face the world on my own with what I have as knowledge. And I opened up a physical shop in Boca Raton, and it was a small little shop. It was 400 square feet. I knocked down a wall. There was a toilet and like the room. And I told myself I was going to make this work. And for a good year, I sold everything good, from handmade to custom. I mean, stuff that I still have some of the stuff even since today. And that was 10 years ago. Well, 12 years ago, because that's when I started my business. But the what I enjoyed about the majority of that time was the people that I met throughout the process, my neighbors, my people in front of me, the bar that was down at the end of the corner. Like, we had block parties, we had, we would refer people to each other, and that networking always gets me going. Like, I work alone, so it's like I'm always going to look for someone to like bounce ideas off of and talk to. And if they have a small business, I'm like, yes, let's go. And if I can help you, then that's, I mean, I'm fulfilling my own dream. But it's always been my thing to just make sure people feel confident in their work, even if they're starting out. Like, I encourage everybody to start something. And even my mom, she's a teacher, but I told her, I was like, you should get an Etsy and make teacher stuff. And she's like, why? I'm like, because you can. Because you can. But it's always been a passion of mine, because I started from nothing. I grew over these 10, 12 years, and learned and networked and met people and forgot people. And it's just something that you go through. And I don't think I could ever go back to like a 9 to 5. I think about it a lot, but I think no, there's no way, because there's just something about that small business that builds community. It builds that connection with people. And with that, I mean, you can get anything. I mean, I have people coming to me every day. Oh, so and so told me about you, and I'm like, yes, heart them. I love them, and I'll tell them all the time. I'm like, let me send you like coffee, or I don't know, a bottle of whiskey, something to thank you, because like it's so important to me that they believe in me,
Yeah.
that they would do that, and that's what gets me going every time. So I'll encourage everybody till I'm blue in the face.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Do you sell so you sell on TikTok, you have
Yeah.
your website. Do you also have an Etsy as well?
I do. So I don't anymore, but I do. So Etsy's a fickle beast, but I will always recommend it, because also that was core memory. That was where I started. I would say, in my mind, big enough on Etsy to move to a website, even though I always had my website. But Etsy definitely has changed and evolved over the last few years. That makes it very sad to be a vendor on there, but it still garnishes enough to keep it.
Yeah.
So I had UpOwlNight on there for a good long years. I mean, I'm talking like 15 years. First 5 years I did nothing with it. Last 10 years went hardcore. I put my shirts on there maybe 6 years ago, 7 years ago, before pandemic, and they just took off. Like, it was like I was like, this is a thing. Okay, cool. Let me put a couple more. Let me make a couple more designs. People were asking me for designs, and I was just like, these are random people. And it was such a great feeling, because I was cranking out hundreds a week, and it was wonderful. And then Etsy got a little fickle, and they ended up deciding to close down my shop. Um, it's silly, but I get it. But there's a lot of vendors on there that are not kosher, and I was swept up into that wave of, oh, you're not doing things that are authentic, and I'm like, I'm a real person. Like, this
Yeah.
is real stuff. So as much as I was like heartbroken, I was like, it's time. It's time, because it was such a struggle, because people would make claims. They would say things like, the shirt is trash, or the vinyl's not whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's no way. And of course, my heart breaks. I'm like, but that's my one thing that I love doing. And you're telling me it's garbage. So, this whole, self issue
That's
that I have.
always and that's always a hard one because the it's so hard when you're like in that kind of realm of stuff.
Yep.
It's always very, very difficult. So yeah,
Yeah.
I can imagine that for sure. So one of the things that I'm always I guess my first one is since this is your full-time thing and you're constantly going, and I know your brain's always constantly going. One question I always have is what do you do for fun when you're not actually creating and printing and basically packaging up stuff or creating TikToks? What do you do for fun?
Well, that's a good question because I love that stuff. I can always do something fun like that. So I have a great group of friends. We'll do like trivia nights, or we'll go like recently we did a pumpkin beer taste testing at one of the places nearby, and it's always a lot of fun for me because it takes me away from like being in my studio and like working every day on
Yeah.
something that I would love to do all day long anyways. But one of the things that I self-indulge in, it's just funny because people are like, "Oh, you should sell those," and I'm like, "No, this is a fun thing." Um, is I cross stitch. I do cross stitches. I
Okay.
like I wish I had one near me. I don't even know where my thing is. But yeah, I'll do like fandom cross stitches. So like right now I'm doing like the whole Star Wars, universe. I have a C3PO done. I've done an Ewok, the Millennium Falcon, all those. And
You're kidding.
yeah, I just finished R2D2, which happened to be a big guy, and now I'm on to like something completely different.
So
So
are you cross stitching them on like their own? And
yes.
so it's kind of like so it's not like
Yeah,
one massive one, but it's like actual pieces of like
just little guys.
different
Yeah.
ones.
I find the patterns on Etsy, or people that sell the patterns, and sometimes they're really big, like 8 by 8 inches, or they're, super tiny, like 4 by 4s. And I just put them in a hoop and hang them on the wall and admire them. So, but that's what I like those. I like doing those. Those are always fun. And I play video games, and I have a good online group that we do Thursday night game nights, and we'll play like Uno or Wheel of Fortune or silly games like that. And it's always a good like mental break from creating or sitting at the computer
Yeah.
all day.
No, I
So
think that's like so
yeah,
super important. The idea of socialization and being able to do that. I'm actually very jealous. That sounds like a lot of fun to be able to do all this.
I play Uno with us on
And
Thursdays.
that's pretty badass. I absolutely love that. No, that's great. One of the so obviously I always ask the question, but you've kind of answered it. So I'm trying to think of another way of asking it because I usually ask the question like, what advice would you give someone for starting something? But I think you kind of nailed it when you said when you gave me your answer on what advice you would give yourself to actually restarting. So no
Yeah,
reason to kind of kind of regurgitate that same
yeah,
answer because it was a pretty good answer on that. So I definitely understand that. Let's talk a little bit about failure because I'm kind of like that's always one that a lot of people always kind of like, I'm going to go with failure, but I'm also going to go with, and you can take it either way you want. I'll give you two sides of it, the failure part of it, or what about like when you have that, as a creative person, sometimes you hit a rut and you kind of have those moments where you kind of it just kind of it's kind of hard. You got to pick yourself up and try to get yourself back into that same mental state and energy. What are some things that you do to kind of help with that? And then what are some things that you've maybe failures that you've experienced that you've learned from that you've kind of said, hey, I learned from this because the mere fact that you opened a shop in Boca Raton, which is like my parents used to live down there.
yeah,
That's a tough market. That's a tough place to be and create a store at.
yeah.
So things like that. So like, tell me a little bit about some of that aspect of like when you have those moments, what helps you get, kind of brush it off and kind of take those next steps to be able to, kind of keep going forward.
I mean, that's hard because that's something I always struggle with. Is always like, is it good enough? Is always the question. They're not buying it. What's wrong with it? Is it me? Is it everything that I make? And it sort of it sort of tornadoes into that whole thing. And most of the time, I just have to sleep it off and drink it off, sleep it off, eat it off, and it usually comes back, and it's usually fine. But no, realistically, after all these years of doing that, I mean, when I had the store, there was a lot of failures. There was a lot of between the financially, being tough, and then the marketing aspect. Like I had no idea what I was doing, and I made it. And when I got to that point and I came out of that scenario, I was like, okay, so instead of doing this, we should do that. And I've never wanted to just sit there and just go, well, that's it. I'm never doing that again. I've never done that. And it's not in my nature to do that. So I'm always like, okay, what can I do next? What's the next thing? And it's always moving forward and researching and reading and talking to people that are in your industry and, finding out what works and what doesn't. I mean, it's hard to talk about it, but if you just look past it and just say, okay, that was a something I can learn from and do better the next time. If you can afford that, great. Like that's really the biggest thing, a biggest piece of advice. But
Yeah.
the for myself personally, it's over the years, it's just okay, I need a day or two to kind of, if I'm not feeling it, if it's not working, if that client is just not being cooperative, it's just one of those things where I'm just like, okay, step away, go play a game, go somewhere else,
Yeah.
like step away from it, breathe, and then come back hard, like sleep it off, come back hard the next day. And I had to like tell myself like, we got this, no one else is going to do this for you, this is
Mm-hmm.
all on you. And that sounds scary, but it's like, it's just, if I don't do it, no one else is going to do it.
Yeah.
No one else is going to send that invoice or make that, TikTok happen, so I have to like convince myself that it's me, myself, and I, and
Yeah.
my boss doesn't like it.
No,
So
I love that. I love that. What did I'm always fascinated or trying to figure out like I through all the ones episodes that I do, I always like to kind of ask the question of like, did you have like entrepreneurial influences when you were younger? Is that something, because I'm always intrigued by that, because I'm trying to figure out if it's something like you get inspired by it because you've seen others do it, so therefore you do it. And maybe it was when you were a kid, or maybe it's when you're like, you see the circle that you've created around yourself now, like as you got older and they've kind of inspired you. Like, where did that inspiration come from? Was it like an early age, later on, or all together? Because that's what you bring. That's the circle that you bring to yourself. Like, how does that work?
that's really interesting. I think it's always been ingrained. I think it was like a sleeper agent in myself because my dad has always been a jack of all trades. I mean, he's had many titles and he's been great at every single one of them. Contractor, veterinarian, I mean, engineer,
Wow.
like, he's got them all. But from where I come from, those things you have to be. You have to be ever evolving. You have to kind of, there is no 9 to 5. Like there is no, you go, you clock in, you clock out. There is, but there's not. That philosophy works a little better here in the States than it does from where I'm from. So it tends to it tends to lend itself more to entrepreneurship. So if you can step outside the box, then great. And my dad did that. So when we moved to the United States, I mean, I was still in high school. I was in 8th grade when I moved here, and going into ninth,
From
and
where? From where, Carolina?
from Venezuela.
Okay.
Yeah, from South America. So when we moved here, it was not planned. It was just kind of happened to be the way it was. And so, it was always like, oh, America, you got to do the 9 to 5 to get somewhere. You got to go to the school and you got to get your degree in 9 to 5 and you'll be great. And then I did that. I got nowhere. No, that's not true. I didn't get anywhere. That's not true. I did get somewhere because I really thought to myself, okay, if I do this and this is the career that I want, let me go study, let me go work in it.
Yeah, I'm checking all the boxes. Everything should line up then.
Yeah, this should be the way it goes. If I finish high school and I'm interested in this and I go do that, I should get a job in it. And I just went and worked in the industry before I even got my degree. And I worked in the industry for 10 years, and interior design industry is what I mean. And it was great. I worked at a couple different companies, fantastic places. I learned a lot, developed who I was, developed my, my dynamic for business and how I should do things. And I bring that corporate world back into my business because it's that diligence that I have. That's the kind of thing that you need in your business, especially if you're by yourself, that diligence. Because my refrigerator is no 10 feet away from me, and there's a lot of good snacks in there that I could just walk up and eat all day long. But I have to consider what I have to do before I do that. And it's tough, but that diligence comes in. I wake up, very, very structured. And if I veer off of that, I don't feel so bad.
Yeah.
I just tell myself I have to make sure I get it done. But when I left that industry, I was like, oh, another 9 to 5. And then I was like, no, because I'm going to have the same problem I'm going to have now. And I'm just not going to be happy enough. And it really it just happened. I looked at my mom and I said, I'm gonna open up a store. Like I was like crazy. Like I was a crazy person. But I had all my resources, I had my vendors, I knew who to talk to, I had my circle that made sense. And that helped me put that all together. And then from there I learned. And then from there I went, nope, this is not what it's not sustainable enough for me.
Yeah.
Let me move on to the next big thing. And that's where I am now. For the last 12 years, I've been doing that. And same thing, same circle of friends, same vibe of people. I have a lot of friends that do 9 to 5s, and I respect all of that, but it's just not built for me anymore. I
No.
work differently. I'm built differently now.
Yeah.
So
No, I love that.
yeah.
I think that's awesome. And that's one of the things, that perspectives that I like, because obviously I have a corporate job, but I also do everything else on the
Yeah.
side. So it's one of those where that's why I admire, because it's like it's hard work. It's hard work trying to balance all of these things. And at the same time, for you, it's very easy that for you to get sucked in and not have, that's why I love hearing the fact that you have activities and you do certain things, because it's very easy to get sucked into your business and then just live your business and then not have any of that extra activity and things to do socially. And then that just becomes, it becomes work instead of become something that you love doing, which is great, because that's one of the things that you said. You're like, oh well, I probably would be doing this anyhow, even if I didn't, even if I
Yeah.
wasn't, I'd still be doing it.
I
So
tell them all the time, I'm like, I'm gonna clock out, and I still sit here for 3 hours making something else.
yeah.
But I call it my side fun, because it's like, oh, I'll make like another sticker, or I'll play around with my shop, and like it's like my after work stuff. And I,
Yeah.
I still treat it as a side hustle, even though it's literally takes up half my day.
No,
So,
I think that's
yeah.
fantastic. Where can people where and how can people follow you, shop, follow you on TikTok, and be able to see what you're selling, and do some shopping, and check out your brand?
Absolutely. So my website's very much active, UpOwlNight.com. You're going to find everything. I revamped it. So there's going to be some very clear categories on what I'm selling and what's going to fit in those categories. I'm going to start adding new things for the season. Right now, all the spooky stuff is up and ready to sell. Even the sticker books are up. All my stickers are up there. I hang out on Instagram mostly. UpOwlNight.fl is my handle. You can find me on there, doing silly videos and loving it. But yeah, can talk to me on there and all that.
Is
Um,
TikTok, what's the TikTok? Is it
TikTok
also?
is also UpOwlNight.fl. I try to keep them the same. I guess UpOwlNight.com or UpOwlNight was taken by somebody else, and I'm like, no. But yeah, I on those two platforms you'll find me. I try to be on there, at least once a day, just to kind of hang out and talk to people and see what's going on. But yeah, those are the few places. I mean, I'm on Facebook, but Facebook usually is just for the fun stuff and
Yeah.
scrolling excessively. So
Yeah.
don't find me
How,
there.
out of curiosity, how often are you posting on TikTok and on Instagram? Like, is
So
it?
regularly, I would say if you can do it once a day, I usually batch out my stuff. It's something that I've developed over the years, is just batching out one day, just sit there and knock out, as much as you can. Scheduling is hard because TikTok doesn't have any integrations yet that are scalable to that extent to schedule. There are schedulers, but they're not really great with the sounds. They don't really pick up the sounds you've saved or anything like that.
Yeah.
So there's a more manual touch to it. But as long as I have it ready, the captions ready, all I have to do is upload and post, and that's it. But yeah, Instagram has been more of a daily thing. TikTok, you can post a couple times a week and still be relevant. So that's what I've been trying to keep up with. But I there's no harm with doing it daily or every other day. If it's something, it could be anything. There's no need to have like a pattern with TikTok. It
Yeah.
just, they want organic and just you living your best life in your business.
No, I think that's great, and that's something that I've actually been hearing a lot of, that they like the
Yeah.
rawness of it.
Yes.
It's definitely something that I plan to jump back on and do more of, because I'll do videos and stuff, but like I always like, oh yeah, I should do that, and then
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, so, and then after you and I chatted, I kind of, it's been in my head now, so
Yeah.
I definitely appreciate that. Thank you so much for taking time with me,
Of course.
and hanging out with me during my lunch break today, Carolina. And definitely thank you for being on. If you definitely check out Up All Night. I will have all the information on the show notes for you to be able to go on. You'll also be able to see it on the Lunch with Biggie podcast Instagram for you to be able to check out as well. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe, make sure to tell your friends, make sure to support other small businesses. If you want to support my small business, check out Deli Fresh Threads. Obviously give me a sandwich selfie, or just show me your favorite sandwich, or heck, show me something that you bought up on Owl Night. I want to see those products. Thank you. Until next time, keep eating sandwiches and follow your passion. Thanks, everyone.